Hello, welcome to Image Bearers. My name is Atoma Eji. I'm very excited to have on the program today Marilyn Kriete, who has written an incredible memoir, which is Paradise Lost, which we'll talk about today.
Paradise Road.
Paradise Road. Paradise Lost is the other guy.
That was Milton.
Thank you for correcting me on that. And also we have on the program today Holly, who's my good friend, also in Canada. I'm going to go through and read just a quick bio about Marilyn Kriete, who wrote Paradise Road. So it says, after a colorful life spanning 4 continents and 16 cities, earning her keep as a cook, chambermaid, waitress, fisherwoman, missionary, speaker/teacher, tutor, and academic writing editor, Marilyn now lives in British Columbia, Canada, with her charitable husband and 3 demanding cats. Their 2 grown children were adopted from Mumbai, India, and Athens, Georgia. Besides her favorite activities, which are writing and sleeping, she enjoys hiking, cycling, blogging, reading, playing word games, watching documentaries, and cleaning other people's homes. Her poetry and nonfiction have appeared in the Lyric, Storyteller, the Eastern Iowa Review, the English Bay Review, and Brevity blog. Paradise Road is her first memoir. Thank you for coming on the program today.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm so excited because your favorite color is purple, my favorite color is purple, so
we're bonded already.
We're vibing already on that. All right, Miss Holly, you want to start us out?
Absolutely. So I have a few questions for you, Marilyn. Can you please share a little bit about yourself and why you decided to write Paradise Road?
Okay, well, thank you for reading my bio, so you got a little bit of that out of the way. It's hard to share a little bit about myself because my life has been kind of all over the place and I've done a lot of things, but right now the 3 most recent things about me are I just hit that magical age of 65 and got approved for collecting my old age security, which is hard to believe because I still feel like I'm in my 20s inside. We just had our first grandchild born this week. Came a little premature, but that's exciting news. And and within the last 3 months, I had my first book published, which is a long-term dream that took a while to realize, but it's great to see that really happen. Why I decided to write the memoir. Honestly, I always knew I would write this book. I just knew that I had kind of an amazing story to tell, an unusual story to tell, and just wanted to get it out there and share it with the world. And just kind of waiting for the right time in my life when I had time to write and think about it. And and I wrote it hoping that it would land in the right hands of the right readers and touch people's hearts in different ways. And I think it's started to do that.
It certainly did with me, Marilyn. I can tell you that.
Thank you.
I loved your book.
Thank you.
My next question is, did writing your memoir help address any lingering residue of heartache and pain?
You know, I had done a lot of personal work and grief work some years before I started writing the memoir. So I would say I didn't have a lot of it wasn't like some people start writing a memoir and they start to access this pain that they didn't really even know was there or they hadn't dealt with before. I felt like I had dealt with a lot of that. But it did help me see with fresh eyes how much God was watching over my life at every stage. I mean, I kind of could see, as they wrote about especially about my teen years and the crazy antics of running away and so on, I did start to see more clearly how much God had protected me and watched over me. And of course, retelling the story of my conversion was, very clearly a part of that trajectory. But I could see God's hand in every part of my life, and that was so. Yeah, it didn't really touch on pain. I think it brought more clarity to how much God was always working in my life.
That's awesome, Marilyn.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What are you hoping your readers will get out of your debut memoir?
Well, I know different readers will take away different things. For a lot of people, I hope that it'll inspire them to look at their own lives through really fresh eyes and see God's hand and God's work in their life more clearly. I think for younger readers, it might give them a great picture of what life was like way back then, the life before technology and cell phones and so on, when we just kind of got out there and lived our lives and had a lot of freedom to do that. That I don't know if people have that same kind of freedom today. And I hope for some, especially for Christian readers, I hope that they can maybe get some hope that maybe some people that they know that they feel like could never become Christians actually could. Because if you'd met me back then, I was one of the least likely Christian converts you'd ever meet. I was very opposed, very closed to Christianity. So I hope it gives that kind of fresh hope to people too, that any heart can be reached, and God will do amazing things to get to us.
That's awesome, Marilyn.
Yeah.
Marilyn, do you think that your early adventurous spirit helped you face some of the challenges of ministry in the 4 continents that you worked in, North America, Europe, Asia, and Africa? And if so, how?
Yeah, I think, I think God kind of gave me a kind of adventurous, independent spirit from the get-go. But I do think that having gone through some of the things I went through and surviving them, and especially maybe the traveling, bicycle traveling solo and with other people, really kind of prepared. It kind of helped me see that I could do a lot more than I maybe thought I could, that I could push myself beyond what was comfortable or felt, my limits, and find joy in that. And I think the traveling really helped me with learning to talk to anybody, anywhere. That's something you kind of develop when you travel alone. And I had no problem in any place just going up to people and talking. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know I can just share, after reading your book, I got on my bike and I never thought I could do 30 kilometers. And I thought about you out there riding across provinces. And I thought, well, I can do at least 30 kilometers.
There you go. Way to go, Holly. Good for you.
Towards the end of your memoir, you write about meeting your husband, Henry. Can you please share a little bit about that part of your history and the impact those early years had on your faith?
Yeah, I had a few friends that know Henry well are kind of like, why did you stop the book there? You just introduced this guy who's going to be your husband for, actually our anniversary is tomorrow, 40 years.
Wow.
Congrats. Thank you. You barely say much about him. I do write about him in my future memoirs, so I'm not neglecting him at all. But yeah, those early years were really exciting. I met a young man named Henry who was out on his own. He was 21, moved downtown Toronto, got his own street ministry going, was doing incredible things to just share the word and share his life and share what he had with people in need. And he brought me into that when I met him. And he also just was the first person to really introduce me to how powerful and amazing and true the scriptures are. I mean, I'd gone to a lot of churches in my church shopping days, but I hadn't met anybody who took the scriptures as seriously as Henry did, and who loved them as much as he did, and who was eager to share as much as he. So, yeah, our first year we got married within 10 months of meeting each other, and started a house church ministry, which grew. We had about 35 people in the first year, I think, and amazing memories. A lot of those people are still around and were part of the Toronto church planning that took place later. So yeah, those were great years. So I kind of end my book at that point, but not because what came next wasn't important, but just because that was where my first part of my story ended there.
I know I was anxiously looking for part 2 as well. You can sort of like a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Hungry for more, for sure.
Yeah.
And Paradise Road is the first part of a 4-part series of memoirs. Can you please share about the next 3 memoirs that you're working on?
Okay, well, yeah, a couple of them are pretty much, one of them I'd say is 95% done. There'll be some more edits just before publishing. The other one is I'm going through other edits right now, and the third one I'm halfway through writing. The second one actually picks up my story 20 years later. It's called The Box Must Be Empty. And it starts by recounting the story of how the grief that I had over losing my first love, Jack, to cancer, how I thought I had dealt with that, but I actually hadn't, because I was too busy riding my bike everywhere and starting new adventures. And I pushed it down really far. And then my life, from becoming a Christian onwards, got really, really busy, really full of a lot of change, a lot of moving, a lot of new people. And I never had time or even realized that I needed to revisit that stuff. So 20 years later, the grief burst back, flooded out into my life like a tsunami, and really did a number on me, huge number on me. It was one of the biggest trials of my life. So that book starts with that, and it's really all about dealing with complicated grief and delayed grieving, which is something you don't really hear people talking about much.
No.
And even disenfranchised grief is when the grief is huge and amazing and powerful, but maybe not recognized by other people as significant as it was. So it deals with that, but it also deals with the trauma that came after that, because before I had resolved all of that, then we moved into a time in our ministry where we moved to London, and things were just very intense there. We watched the church implode in front of our eyes, and that sent our life on a whole other tailspin, as most people know. And so it kind of deals with just working through trauma and grief and starting over, and hitting middle age and not knowing who we are anymore. And so I think it will hit a lot of people at different points in their own journey, whether it's undealt with grief or trauma or just getting older.
All of those transitions are points of grief as well. Think about it.
Yeah, and grief has a way of just it just kind of like a snowball. It just kind of one grief flows into the next, and before you know it, you have this huge ball of grief to deal with, and you've got to start unraveling and figuring out where to start.
I think there's a recognition now that there's such a thing as grief in the body as well.
Mm-hmm.
So grief, it will express itself in a physical way, and emotional and mental and spiritual, and all parts.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you'll see that in that book. So, and then the next book, I go back again in time, and it's about our couple of years that we spent in the ministry in Bombay, back in the early, in the mid 80s. And interestingly enough, it basically, the culmination point of that is the adoption of our son. It's been kind of interesting because he's going through this whole thing. His baby just came this week, and I've been editing the section of that memoir where he came into our lives, and it's been kind of cool timing on that end. And then the fourth memoir, which is probably going to be the least controversial and the most just fun to read, is about our time in Africa. And those were some of the best years of our lives for sure. And not so much trauma in those books, more just like, whoa, can you believe that just happened? And crazy stories and amazing people. And heartbreak when we had to leave. Definitely, it was we wanted to stay in Africa forever. So leaving Africa against our will was another huge trauma. But it's really been great to write about that as well. So those are the 4 books.
Wow, that's great, Marilyn. I'm excited to read them all. Over to you, Antoine.
Thank you. So I know you covered a little bit of this earlier, but can you give just a brief synopsis of what Paradise Road is about?
Yeah, so Paradise Road is basically my first 24 years of life. I cover some of my childhood, not too much of it, but basically I had a really challenging relationship with my mom, and to the point where I ran away from home at 14 and never went back, and landed myself in, first I ran away for a while, then landed myself in juvie twice, and in a girls' home for a couple of years, and then I was on my own at 16 and living as a wannabe hippie, and then that leads into the story of my first great love, and this bicycle journey that we set off on together. Our goal was to ride to South America and on our bikes and stay down there and work on our Spanish. He had a little, I had none, and then, but before that trip, before we got to South America, he got really sick and died. So the rest of the memoir basically talks about the journey that I went on after his death to try to find answers and figure out my life, because I had no plan B. He was my whole life, and all my dreams and future were tied up in us together. So I set off by myself to complete this journey that he had started on his bike years before, and ended up getting totally off track and off the map, and ended up in a place I never expected to be. So that's that story.
Which is a beautiful story, because you ended up meeting Henry and becoming a disciple, and traveling all over the world. So in some ways, it obviously worked out. It worked out awesomely. All right. So as we move on to the second part of the interview, we're going to discuss a few elements of good writing and just give some inspiration to others who may want to write their own memoir. So I know in a recent podcast you mentioned that if you're going through reading something and the writing is not good, you just stop. So can you please share a little bit about what you would consider constitutes good writing?
Yeah, I have to say that the more that I write myself, the more critical I am of other people's writing. It's gone to the point now. It's kind of sad, because I used to go to the library and bring home a stack of books, and I rarely put any of them aside. Now I can bring home, not kidding, I'll bring home 6 books, having vetted them and thinking they look great. And chances are 5 out of the 6 will be on my did not finish pile, because I just kind of read with different eyes now. It kind of reminds me of I saw a meme on a writer's site a little while ago that had, how an embroidery hoop looks, 2 sides of it, right? The front that shows the finished embroidery picture, beautifully done, and then the back that shows all the stitches or whatever. And the meme said, showed the bright side and said, what readers see when they read a book. And then the second one was what writers see when they see their book. And I'm starting to see, I think, as I read other people's books, I kind of see that back side of things a little too clearly now. But for me, great writing, I think the first thing I look for is just clarity. Like I want to know where I am and what I'm doing and where I'm going with this book soon into the book. I'm willing to stick it out for a few pages, but if I'm kind of muddled and confused, and I think I'm a pretty smart person, so if you're confusing me with your writing, I think the problem might be that the clarity issue. So clarity, I'm really turned off by wordiness, using too many words, too many descriptions, too much dialogue. Unless it's amazing dialogue, that can be a turnoff for me. Another key to great writing is what writers call voice, and it's kind of hard to define what that is, but it's just a sense of you can sort of sense and feel the writer's brain ticking behind the writing. And I want to feel intelligence there. I want to feel originality. I want to feel a sense of humor. Even if it's not a funny book, I want to kind of sense that the writer, can kind of see the world with a sense of humor. So voice. And I want to feel like the writer knows where he's going or she's going, and it's going to take me on a great journey. And I can kind of pick that up fairly quickly too. I'm always looking for originality. Like I don't read genre books, like thrillers or mysteries or romance or whatever, because they so much are just following sort of a formula. And I love to find books that are not following any formula. I don't know where the book's going to take me, but it's going to be fun and unexpected. So those to me are kind of marks of good writing that I look for. But again, I know I'm kind of turning into a bit of a book snob, unfortunately. But yeah.
So once you're done with the full memoirs, do you have plans to write other things?
I don't. I kind of panic a bit. Like I've kind of slowed down a bit with the writing, because I'm like, when I finish these, what do I do next? Because I don't see myself as a fiction writer, and I don't think I should inflict a fifth memoir on the world. I think that's a little too much to ask for people. But I'm not one of these, like I have lots of writer friends that write fiction, and they always have these ideas popping in their heads and characters and scenarios, and that doesn't happen with me. And Emily keeps thinking, oh, you could absolutely write fiction, but so maybe I will, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. So,
Good deal.
yeah.
So, what advice do you have for aspiring writers? I think you kind of covered some of those a little bit already, but are there any others you can share?
I think, first of all, just recognizing right off the bat that nobody is a great writer without a great deal of practice. And I think it's a kind of, people can be a little confused about this because you wouldn't pick up a musical instrument and think I could automatically play the guitar or play the piano or play the harp without years of practice and dedication to it. And same with painting. I mean, people can do amateur painting for sure, but to paint a really good picture, you need years of practice and training and whatever. So I think to just be willing to put in the work and the time to practice writing and to work at it hard are really important.
I think you were part of a writers group for a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to say I strongly recommend writers groups. They are so invaluable, especially because I think almost every writer, if they're not instructed otherwise, they will make the same amateur mistakes as every other beginning writer makes. And if you go to a writers group and start getting critiqued and listening to other people share their work, you'll quickly learn what some of those glaring mistakes are and learn how to avoid them. Plus, you'll get great feedback on how to make your own work better. So, yeah, writers groups are really good. Reading a lot, reading outside of your preferred genre or type of book that you like. Those are all important things. I've got a few other things down here. Yeah, I think that's the main thing, like putting in the time. And don't start writing your book right away. Start writing shorter pieces. I spent quite a few years writing poetry, and that really helped me find my voice and really work at the craft of distilling thoughts and ideas and making them clear. So, yeah, those are some tips.
I think you also mentioned in a previous podcast daily targets.
Well, yeah, I think, again, you see this all the time. I'm on so many different online writers groups, and writers always kind of semi-joke about, procrastinating a lot. It's hard to sit down and write and keep writing, even if you have great ideas. Something about us just wants to write a bit and get out of the chair and stop doing it. I don't know what that is, but so when I started writing my first memoir, I set myself a 2,000 word a day word count target, that I would write at least 2,000 words each day. And that was really helpful because otherwise I probably would have written about 500 and then, gotten up, walked away and thought that's enough for today. But having that word count just forces you to push through and keep going and get better and get the thing done. So
I think in the last, is it 6 years, you've written about 3, almost 4 of your memoirs. How would you, is that timeline correct?
Something like that. I haven't really, the time has kind of slipped away from me. But yeah, I'd say the first book I probably spent just under a year writing the first draft, and then probably an equal amount of time on editing, going back over it again and again. That's another thing for writing. Editing is so important. And one of the best writing tips I've ever heard, because Stephen King talks about this in his book on writing, is to finish that first draft and put it away and don't look at it or touch it for as long as possible. He recommends, I think I remember him saying 6 months. But that gives you a chance to step away from your work. And when you come back to it, you're seeing it with very fresh eyes, and you'll see what works and what doesn't, and it'll be far easier to edit it more objectively. So I think a great piece of advice from Stephen King. Can't argue with that.
Yeah, that's for sure. So we all need some inspiration to start writing. And I think you've written an article called Awaken the Muse to inspire new authors. Could you read that brief
Yeah, I'd be
piece for
happy
us?
to. Yeah. Awakening the Muse. I felt the books inside me, but decades of work and family life, spread over 4 continents and 16 cities, put writing on hold as the years flew by. At 50, I still wasn't ready to write my first book, but it was time to make time and start something. The 10,000 practice hours theory was daunting. If true, it meant I had years of mediocre writing to churn out before the good stuff could come. I hoped some innate talent might give me an edge. I'd been writing metrical poetry with internal rhyme in second grade, so I knew I housed a writer. But as an adult, I'd only written occasionally. It was time to pay my dues. I began with daily writing sessions at the local college library, a supposedly neutral setting away from domestic distractions. I bought 2 boxes of pencils and a spiral bound 240-page notebook and set off for my apprenticeship. My enthusiasm hit immediate roadblocks. Like many new writers, I was superstitious, terrified of writer's block, and obsessed with physical details. Everything had to be just right. The first 10 minutes of every session involved scouting the library in search of the perfect carol. The magic spot was elusive, not too hot, too chilly, too sunny, too dark, too noisy, or too close to anyone who coughed or wrinkled paper. I'd often unpack my gear, fret over the first sentence, and end up moving several times before writing a single word. Noise drove me batty. A particular whiny voiced librarian with long, loud winded opinions squelched the muse, and I was tempted to report her to the college president. Some days, it was the pencils doing me wrong. My arthritic fingers cramped, the pencils hurt, the lead broke or wrote too faintly. Frustrated, I wrote about inferior pencils or my lack of inspiration, hating the inane drivel that issued forth. But I pushed on. Soon I was writing short autobiographical narratives with beginnings, middles, and ends. My early scribblings were unexceptional. I was editing as I went, erasing, backtracking, tearing out pages, and changing carols to escape snacking, coughing, or chattering students. I looked around and felt old and out of place. I wondered if anyone would care about anything I ever wrote. I worried my crampy hands would cease forever. Still, I kept to my allotted time before packing up my gear and trundling home. A rough start. I didn't share my words with anyone, and my heart never soared as I wrote. Well, sometimes it fluttered a little faster. Writing was work, and the restlessness I felt each time I sat down made each session a battle. But I persevered. The work wasn't gratifying, but felt necessary. The requisite hours were being paid. The next chapter started with a newly empty basement room, a room of my own. Blissfully free of noisy distractions, I could leave my notes in place, ready for whenever I slipped downstairs. I could drink tea while I wrote. And my first in-house session came with a gift. The first poem I'd written since childhood, apart from humorous verses I wrote for friends and family on special occasions. It wasn't a great poem, but it came from my heart and gave me exactly what I needed. The first line was the title, Restless Soul, and the next lines, Why do you roam? Come close, sit down, stop moving, spoke to my spirit and calmed my agitation. The poem acknowledged my scattered state, myself in pieces, and urged me to set my trouble down, to leave it here, knowing it would scream and cry and call me back, but to keep waving as you walk away, and venture unencumbered into writing, a turning point. For many months I entered my writing room and wrote or revised a poem every day. The poems were as varied as my inner landscape. Some were almost Jungian, deep musings from the subconscious, while others were witty confections, wry commentaries, a sideways look at something odd or commonplace. The daily poems were like exotic birds, alighting to delight me. I wrote scores of poems and returned to the best to polish and revise, seeking impossible perfection. Writing poems didn't cramp my fingers. The words were fewer and came slower, and my brain swirled with creativity. My inner critic took a nap while I wrote, and as my output grew, I bought new notebooks to explore where the muse would take me. Many of the poems were therapeutic. I had deep griefs to process, and now a way to turn pain into art. Writing brought the bittersweet to light, where my sorrow could be acknowledged, refined, and at least partially absolved. A new phase. I started to share my poems, and they were well received, eliciting laughter, tears, and meaningful comments when I read them aloud. I was part of a fellowship group that met Friday evenings, and these friends became my first live audience as they graciously let me turn meetings into poetry readings. At last, instead of withdrawing when I felt sad, I was finding my voice among friends who wanted to listen and talk about the themes and emotions my poetry explored. The next phase was blogging. Typing, I discovered, was far superior to handwriting when it came to lengthier output. I was thankful for the Mavis Beacon typing course I'd mastered years earlier, giving speed to my fingers. I wrote light and serious posts, including several series about my spiritual journey. Blogging garnered public comments, something my writer's soul craved during this phase. One day, I woke up knowing I was ready to start my first memoir. The story had ripened in me for decades, waiting to be told. I'd put in my 10,000 hours or something close. As if on cue, my memoir's opening scenes materialized and I was off. After a year of intense daily writing, my first book was ready for querying, an arduous but necessary step towards traditional publishing. I got encouraging responses from several prestigious agents, enough to confirm that what I'd written was good. A second, weightier memoir was waiting inside. Within weeks, my opening scene surfaced and I started writing. 20 months later, my second book morphed from dream to reality. I used to worry I'd run out of things to say, topics to write about. Still do a little. But I've learned just the opposite. When you take the first steps, put in the hours, labor and learn, aim for perfection and shoot for the stars, the muse replenishes. Lately, I put aside my third book, first draft complete, edits pending, to write shorter pieces swirling inside, stories to share, and lessons I hope will encourage other writers. The muse wants action. She wants focus and attention. Focus and dedication. She wants to delight and be delighted. Meet her halfway, and she'll surely amaze you. I always knew I'd write a book, or maybe several. I just didn't know I'd start so late or find such hard-won joy in catching up.
And I think your story is probably typical of a lot of people who maybe wrote when they were really young or had a desire to write, and then life got really busy, and perhaps now they want to perhaps pick up the pen or pick up the computer and write. So I think that was very powerful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so obviously you're someone who has, I think, very high tastes in writing. What are some memoirs or books that you go, man, this was really good?
That's a hard. Let's see here.
That you would say are great examples of writing.
Yeah, I did write down some titles here. I think a couple of the classic memoirs that everybody seems to love, and I also love. Angela's Ashes is amazing. If you've never read that, I remember reading that when it first came out, and hearing that Frank McCourt, the author, was 65 when it was published, and I was like, oh man, no, it's impossible, and it ended up kind of matching his record there. But Angela's Ashes is amazing. Glass Castle, another favorite that I also love. The Liars Club, of course, and even some memoirs that kind of get mixed reviews, but were hugely popular, like Wild and Eat, Pray, Love. I know they get dissed a lot because of the memoirs themselves maybe make lifestyle choices that some readers don't agree with, and I don't necessarily agree with either. But they are good examples of memoirs that really carry a strong story and catch your reader's attention, and they're worth reading just to kind of learn from that. I also really loved Michelle Obama's Becoming. Excellent memoir, and I believe she's an intelligent woman. I believe she wrote that on her own. And another kind of favorite celebrity memoir that I read years ago and then reread it again and still loved it was Mia Farrow's book. It's called What Falls Away. And again, she wrote it herself. It's not a ghostwritten memoir, celebrity memoir, but I think a really fine example of a very compelling life story. And finally, I'm kind of fascinated by China and Russia. I'm not sure why, but there's three memoirs, very, very different memoirs about China that I love. The first one is called Red China Blues, and it's written. I think she's actually a Chinese Canadian woman who wrote it. The second one is a really thick, fat book called Three Swans or Three Wild Swans or something. I should get the name right. But she covers her grandmother's life and her mother's life and her life in China under totally different circumstances, and that was fascinating. And then another one that, I don't know, this one just really caught my fancy when I read it, and I read it probably 3 times. It's called Undress Me in the Temple of Heaven, and it's a story of a young woman who's college age, goes off to, this is back before China was just opening up a little bit to tourists years ago, and she goes off with her college roommate to explore China very naively, and it's one of those stories that you're just like, every page you're just like, you can't believe what happened next. And she just, it was such a foolish adventure, but she tells it so well that I love that one too. As far as great authors, I fell in love with Bill Bryson years ago with his travel memoir writing. I think he's a great and funny writer, and he's again one where he's kind of writer where you catch his voice right away. You just want to hang out with him and stick with him and find his next book. I love Margaret Atwood. I just think she's a brilliant writer and very, very creative and original. And of course, Alice Munro, Canadian treasure, another great writer. So those are, I guess, some of my favorites. But I was also thinking, in terms of like reading and just picking, like learning structure and grammar and rhythm and stuff from writing, the NIV Bible is amazing at that. Like, and I've learned that a lot because I spent a lot of time memorizing books of the Bible from the NIV 1984 version. And I just think, like, I mean, not only is it God's inspired word and amazing on that level, but just the sentence structure, the rhythm, the law. I mean, it's amazing. So you can pick the Bible and learn to write from that too. It won't be inspired, of course, what you write, but it's got that rhythm and it's got that perfect grammar and diction. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have a copy of Paradise Road with you there right now that you could show us real quick so people can see the cover?
Right here. Here's the
Nice.
Yeah, here's the book.
Yeah, that's good.
That's a picture. That's me. Actual picture. The only color picture I had of me from those times, and I didn't even know I had it. It was one of those amazing things. While I was in the process of querying the book, Henry was going through an old box of old papers and photos, and he said, "Like, I found this old slide of you. You're on a bicycle. Who took this? Where is it from?" And I have no idea how it landed with his stuff. I can figure out who took it and where it was taken, but it turned up just in time to be a perfect picture for the cover. So
Was there really a double rainbow behind you?
oh, that part was it was basically me on a bike on kind of a really dreary desert highway, and the cover designer worked a little magic with the rainbows.
Nice.
Yeah. The cover actually just won a prize, Indie Book Award prize for best cover.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you have the covers for any of the other ones picked out or not yet?
No, that comes quite late into the process. Yeah. In fact, I'm still struggling. I don't even have titles for the last 2. If anyone has great title ideas for a memoir about Bombay, send them my way. And Africa too, the title has not arrived yet. So.
I hear you.
Marilyn, I just had a question. I hope you don't mind me just being spontaneous, Atoma, but I wanted to know, how did you come up with so many great humorous things? Like, my hostility hit him in the face like a wet towel. Like, how did you come up with stuff like that?
I don't know. It just kind of came. It's kind of like, I think once you put in that time and done a lot of writing, you get in the flow, and the muse is there, and she's giving you these zingy one-liners, and yeah. I didn't agonize over them.
Also, from a lot of reading, you pick up what you like. So I think you get some ideas. So that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah. I don't think I consciously stole any turns of phrase. I might have subconsciously, but yeah, I am.
Very cool.
So how can people find out more about you and your writing?
Best place is to go on my website, which is marilynkriete.com. And it links there too. I've got a couple blogs as well. I've got a older blog called Purple Splash of Glory. That's got quite a bit of writing on that from before, including a whole series I did on the Book of Hebrews, which that will probably be my 5th book. I'd like to turn that into a devotional guide.
Okay.
I've got 58 chapters already written on that, so may as well turn it into a book. But yeah, my website's the best place to go, and then I'm on Facebook, so find me there, message me.
I have an idea for a book for you, which is how to write.
How to write, yeah. There are a lot of how to write books. But
everyone has their own spin.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
All right. We're going to get a chance right now just to share about some of the things we appreciate about you, just from our time as we've known you. And then Holly has some basically getting to know you or lightning round questions she'll go through. So I'll go ahead and start out, then Holly will go next. I think for myself, I know that you were in Africa. You and your husband were in Africa. I didn't actually know you then while you were in Africa, but my wife, who is from South Africa, she speaks fondly, of you guys. For me, what I learned most recently was how you had a lot of people from Mexico living with you.
Oh yeah. That could be a good story.
and to me, that you just don't hear about that, I know you guys are from Canada and you guys have a lot softer hearts than we do. Maybe, I don't know. But I just think it's amazing just how, you just took people in and just had a heart for them, and just many other things, even listening to you on different podcasts and the way that you interact, with the guests and so forth. You're just an amazing person. And I think to be able to go on the trip that you've been on, going from place to place, even when you left Africa, you didn't want to leave. Most people are like, hey, I want to get out of there.
We left to make our hearts in Africa.
Yeah, India, so to me, it just says, like, there's so much more I want to learn about you. And I think I'll, learn that as the next set of books come out. I know the next one is coming out February of next year, right?
That's kind of the plan now. Yeah. Okay. We're actually, it's a little bit up in the air too, even if it'll be that the next book will be the one we planned, because we're talking about maybe publishing them in more chronological order. The reasoning behind that being just so that people will kind of have a better sense of when I get into the box must be empty and I'm talking about all my losses, they would have a much better sense of why I am grieving so deeply over Africa and India and so on. So that might change, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But
so that's what I can.
We'll have to wait anyway.
Yeah. No. So that's what I can say as of right now, and I think there'll definitely be more. Hopefully as we get towards February, if one is released, then maybe we'll have you on again and we can share about that.
That'd be great.
So thank you, Ms. Holly. You'd like to share?
Yeah, I just one thing I admire many things about Marilyn. She's a good friend of mine. Marilyn has the ability to develop community no matter where she lives. Both her and Henry are like that. They pull people in. And I have to say, Marilyn's like one of those friends that it doesn't matter if we don't see each other for years. We'll start back up where we left off. So it's relevant to the book that she's written, because whether she's in that group home or whether she's in that college community or she's traveling across the land, she's creating community wherever she goes. And that is long lasting. And it's to me, it was so interesting how you embraced all parts of that in your book, Marilyn, like even running away and being in a group home for a period of time and, getting in trouble and all of that makes you so relatable to so many people who have, had challenges at various stages of their lives. and give them that sense of hope that things can turn out all right despite all that stuff. It's just like, you can always find God at every step of the way, and you can always come back to Jesus, doesn't matter what you've done, kind of thing. It's the same kind of message of hope there. So I just wanted to thank you for that. And I love the idea that, I think one of the things that stuck out to me in that book is that you were so young when you were trying to process the death of somebody that you loved very much. And how could you really?
Yeah.
Being that young, being through trauma already. And I thought, everything has its timing. So, for it to actually get processed later on in life, to me, makes a lot of sense, because it was a time period where you were allowed to slow down. So the message to me there says, every once in a while, we all got to slow down and hear and feel how we feel and pay attention to that and let God work his healing powers in us. So that was another message I got out of that book.
Thanks, Holly. So I appreciate you saying that about community, because honestly, this last year with COVID, my community it really is just my 3 cats and Henry these days. It's shrunk so small. And I've never been in a situation where I've had so few people in my daily life. So and it's, I hate to say this, but I'm almost have this fear of can I get that back? Will I know how to do it anymore? And where do I start? And it's been a strange time, but
Well, you are the master of restarting. So
I guess I tell myself that. And I so appreciate our friendship, Holly. I really do. You've been great friend to me. You were there through a lot of my really, really dark times, and I really appreciate your faithfulness as a friend and your prayers and your just taking me as I was. I was in a pretty bad state.
Definitely mutual. Yeah. So Toma, do we go to these rapid questions?
Yeah.
Okay. So Marilyn, this is like a quick little getting to know you things.
Okay.
What's your favorite cuisine?
I have to say Indian food. Yeah, still one. Yeah.
One of my faves too.
Yeah.
What's your favorite film or series?
For years, my favorite movie, I had 2 favorites. One was Dr. Zhivago, which I used to watch every 2 or 3 years and cry my eyes out every time. I just love that movie. But I've stopped watching it in the last 5 years. Maybe I will again, but I think maybe I've worn it out. And I love the movie Amadeus. I just thought about that movie too. I can watch it again and again. You asked about series, and I never most of my life I'd never watched TV at all, but I have started watching a lot of TV in this last COVID time, and even a bit before that, as I'm slowing down a bit. And maybe I shouldn't share this as a Christian, but 3 series that I really love because of just the writing and the character development and the storylines. Loved Breaking Bad, loved Ozark. What was the third one? Those 2 especially. Really got into those series. There's the third one, I can't remember what it is, but yeah, I know they're kind of worldly, but you do get a good picture of what makes people tick and what it's like to live in the world without any boundaries on sin. But yeah, I just found those series very, very well done. So, yeah.
What's your morning routine look like, Marilyn?
Well, it kind of changes a bit depending on the season and my work schedule. But I guess the thing that's constant every morning, the first thing I have to do is feed the cats. They're ready to eat, and that's number one. And I always start my day with a really tall cup, really strong cup of jasmine green tea. And that gets me going. I always check in, email and Facebook for a few minutes to see what's going on with my friends and if there's any change with my work schedule or whatever. And then, time for devotionals or whatever until I have to go to work. Now that it's summer and hot, and we're facing a huge record-breaking heat wave. We're expecting temperatures in the 105, 106 degrees for the next week.
Wow.
And we don't have an air conditioner. But anyway, I'm sitting here just melting as I talk to you. But as the summer months, I try to get up earlier and get a workout in before it gets too hot as well. So
Awesome.
yeah.
So tell me, do you prefer a paper or a digital Bible, and why?
I've never used a digital Bible. I've got 3 or 4 1984 NIV hardcover Bibles, and those are my Bibles I use. Yeah, one in every room. So, yeah.
1984.
1984, the go-to. And I find them, every time I go to a thrift store, I check, the Bible section, and if there's one of those there, I grab it. So, yeah.
What's your favorite book of the Bible right now?
Right now, that's so hard to answer, Holly. I love Hebrews because I did spend months and months and months memorizing that, but I also love First Peter. That was the first book that I memorized the entirety of. Basically, any book that I end up memorizing becomes my favorite because I spend so much time in it and just, get so familiar with it. So I love Colossians, half of Romans that I've memorized. I love that.
Wow.
What's the secret to memorizing a book of the Bible?
Telling yourself you can do it. Putting in the time. Yeah. Going over and over the verses. There's really no secret trick. It's just drilling it into yourself. But I did find that it's like working out physically. Your brain develops, strength, gets better at it as you do it more. So, but I have to say, this last year of COVID it's been weird. I haven't been able to memorize in the same way. So I've just been working on reviewing what I've already memorized. Yeah.
So I think Atoma asked you the question about your favorite author and book, but I'm wondering, what book do you think everyone should read in the next 12 months?
Easy answer. Paradise Road.
Okay.
And if you've already read it, recommend it to a friend.
All right.
What's the next book after Paradise Road that you would recommend?
That's really hard to say because everybody's taste is so different, right? Yeah, I mean, like I said, I love Margaret Atwood. Some people hate her. Yeah, I don't know. I can't really recommend any one book. Maybe Michelle Obama's Becoming is a great book to just learn a bit more about American history and amazing woman. And yeah.
Did you read her husband's book?
I haven't yet. I really should. I know they're amazing too. Yeah.
What's your favorite place to live, Marilyn?
Again, a really difficult question. Henry and I always say our best years ever were in Lagos. At the same time, it was the toughest place in the world to live. And I don't know if I could. Yeah, there we are. There they are. Brothers in Lagos. Yeah, there he is. Yeah, you got him. I love South Africa. It's a beautiful, beautiful country to live in. But again, I hear pretty alarming stories about what it's like now to be there. Danger and whatever. So I really like the Okanagan where I am now. It's beautiful, really beautiful. And you can get anywhere like 10, 15 minutes. It's nice and manageable. So,
where do you most want to visit, Marilyn?
I would like to go back to every place where we've lived before and see all our old friends. Definitely. Yeah. So
that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you could place a billboard in the middle of BC, what would be on the billboard?
Yeah. This is a tough question because, billboards tend to rub people the wrong way sometimes if you're too overt with your message. But I have to say, you sent me that question in advance, and I looked up where the middle of BC actually is, and it's kind of the middle of nowhere. It's outside of a little town called Vanderhoof, and Vanderhoof has like 4,000 people in it, so the billboard wouldn't get a lot of views. But I'd probably put. Actually, I was at a McDonald's yesterday, just trying to cool off in the air conditioning, and I saw somebody had handwritten a sign and put it above the cashier place, and it said, "Kindness is powerful." And I thought that's a good message for people to hear these days.
Mhm.
Yeah, but of course, again, any strong Bible verse would be a great billboard as well. Love covers a multitude of sins. That's another good one.
Mhm. Thank you, Marilyn.
You're welcome.
Well, Marilyn, because you love purple, we have one of these shirts from Team 126 from Genesis 126.
Awesome.
We'll be sending you. So you can wear that in the cooler days through the year.
Yeah.
But again, just wanted to thank you for just the amazing things that you've contributed to just our family of churches. I'm actually half Nigerian. So Lagos. I actually have brothers who live there right now.
Wow.
My physical family,
Yeah.
biological family.
Yeah.
My dad is actually still alive. He's in Nigeria. So he's in Swaziland. Excuse me.
Okay.
So no, that's definitely dear to my heart. But I wanted to just give a shout out real quick to my good friend Sherry Simpson, who is my book BFF. She supports our little channel here. So I just wanted to give her a shout out. And for those that watch this episode, you liked it, definitely click like and consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.